Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome this afternoon. Got a great hour lined up for you, so we're going to take you through the APM Project Management Award. We're going to take you through, I'll do some introductions in a minute to the great panel we've got assigned here today, and then I'll move straight into an overview of the awards for 2024, and then we'll move into a bit of the panel review. And I just want to introduce you to my fellow panellists today. So my name is Emma Carroll Walsh. I'm here as the APM Awards Steering Group Chair, and I've got Sam Davey, who is the APM Awards Moderator, Kalpesh Patel, who is an APM Awards Judge, Paul Hamnett, who was the APM Engineering, Construction and Infrastructure Project of the Year Award winner in 2023, and Catherine Williamson-Hall, who is the APM Young Project Professional for 2023. So welcome and thank you very much for the time that you're giving today. So I will take you through the awards for 2024. In the awards, we have got various tiers. So tier 1, that is all around project organisations. So you can read the list there. Tier 2 are around projects and programmes. We'll come on to this in the discussion, but it's very important that when you're looking at the projects and programmes to really think hard about which one you actually fit into. Tier 3 is the APM Sustainability Award. Tier 4 covers PMO of the year, and then Tier 5 is where we move on to more individuals. And I will talk around some of the changes that have gone on this year in a minute. But we've got Emerging Project Professional of the Year, Project Professional of the Year, and then Chartered Project Professional of the Year. We have the Safe Project Management Award, which is hosted category, and that's from Shell, which one of our main sponsors. And we have a Nominations Only Award, which is for the Outstanding Achievement Award, which is new for this year. So we do have some non-entry categories, which is Innovation in Project Management and Overall Project of the Year. And this is picked out, so as the judges are going through any of the entries, where they think there has been innovation in project management, so not that it's innovation in a product or the process or whatever it is, the product you've delivered, it's more around actually innovation in project management itself that other organisations would definitely benefit from having that lessons learned piece. So as judges go through, they can tick a box to say they think that is innovative, and then that's reviewed at the end by the judging panel, the award steering group, and the innovation is decided upon, and then also the award steering group do the overall project of the year. So the key changes for 2024, for those of you that may have entered before, so the project organisation categories, so we are now amending that the company of the year and the small to medium enterprise categories will now be a 2-stage judging. So that means that there's a written entry and then there'll be a follow-up presentation entry later on. But the not-for-profit of the year and the public sector, they will remain as one stage. For the individual categories, the Young Project Professional has now changed to the Emerging Project Professional of the Year. So that entry requirement is either 29 years or younger or less than 3 years experience in a project management career. So we really are looking for emerging project professionals. And the Project Professional of the Year, so you can be any age to be Project Professional of the Year, but you just need to have shown that you can have more than 3 years experience in a project management career. So quite a key change for that category. And for the Outstanding Achievement Award, this is new for 2024. It's a by nomination only category. If you are going to nominate someone, please make them aware of the nomination. We don't want them to come as a bit of a shock to them. And it's a 1,000 word entry, so anybody can nominate anyone, but please do make sure that the nominee is aware. And we're also trialling video entry for this year. So it's only going to be for the Emerging Project Professional of the Year category only, so we're going to trial it on this one first. The entrants will have a choice where they can either do a written entry of 1,000 words or a video entry of 8 minutes. The video will only show the entrant speaking to the camera, so no additional persons can be present, no graphics, image or documents may be included in the video, but it will be required to follow the category criteria in the same way as a written entry. So the APM Awards 2024 timeline, so we opened early on the 5th of March for the judges' recruitment. The entries, hopefully you all saw LinkedIn posts and social media this week, was the 16th of April. The judges' recruitment will close on the 3rd of May, and the entries will close on the 10th of June, so and it will be a hard close. There are no exceptions to that. The judging will then commence pretty much straight away, with the finalists being announced on the 23rd of July. I think it's fair to say that for those on a second stage, it will be the first week of September as being earmarked for the second stage for those that are in that element. And then the 18th of November for the awards ceremony for the great night. So hopefully that's clear. And then finally, last slide is that all categories and criteria information can be found on the APM website if you go to the APM-Awards. Okay, so hopefully that's been a whistle-stop tour and a nice introduction to this afternoon. And without further ado, I'm going to move on to the panel briefings. So I'm going to go to you first, Sam. I'd like to ask you, how do you choose which category you enter?
Thanks, Emma, and hello, everybody. I think the thing I would suggest to anyone who is considering entering is to really consider which is the best category to genuinely showcase yourself, your project, and which best lends itself to the examples you're able to provide. You do have to remember that we can't provide guidance. The APM cannot provide guidance on what category you need to enter. You can't say, oh, I want to bring in this project, should I enter it here or there? So it really is important that you read the criteria for all of the categories and don't necessarily assume the obvious one. And what I'd give as an example is, think about the impact you'll have, think about how you're going to showcase it. So, for example, if you work in the public or not-for-profit sectors, consider if you wish to enter in those categories rather than, for example, transformation or technology, which is the one where you will have the best opportunity to genuinely showcase the impact of your work. So I think that's important. I think the other thing to think about is, are you showcasing the project itself, or are you showcasing your work as a project delivery professional? So therefore, are you wanting to enter a category to demonstrate your own expertise, and you are able to enter more than one. So I think please remember that, look at the rules, decide what is the best category for you, and read them through, I think, a couple of times, and maybe have a conversation before actually deciding which one to submit. And do remember, you can submit in more than one.
Thanks, Sam. And what would you say you think makes good additional evidence to include, and what's acceptable?
Again, please look at the rules. It's funny, every year we have to go through and weed out very enthusiastic examples that haven't actually met the criteria. So you can include up to 4 pieces of supporting evidence. It must support information already included in your submission and not introduce additional elements. So, for example, you can't bring in an additional part of the project that you didn't mention in your submission. It must be supporting the information you've already provided. You can put in images and graphics, and when we say no text allowed, of course you can have a caption or a title, but what you can't have is great swathes of additional description and information. We have a word count for a reason. It's to make sure that everyone has a level playing field. Maps and infographics are very, very useful. And another example that a judge said, if you have referenced a framework, for example, then it's useful to actually provide an example of what that framework is, but not to then provide a review of that framework or thoughts or reflections on somebody who's been using it. So it's very much, it is supporting evidence. And what's important to remember is that word supporting. If you put in additional information, I'm afraid we are likely to say that it's not acceptable. Please remember that you shouldn't put in URLs or web links. We can't have elements that are embedded in the evidence. Judges are not allowed to go and explore and find out further information. Their decisions and their judgments are based entirely on what you enter.
Thank you, Sam. And just finally from yourself, are there any other tips or hints you would like to give?
Well, it's obvious, I suppose, but I think please just read the rules of entry. They're very clear, and I think they're very, very helpful. Read through them, and then mull over it. There's quite a long time period. You haven't got to get your application in within a week. So read through, and I'm sure you'll then be able to make the right decision as to which category to enter.
That's lovely. Thank you so much, Sam. Okay, I'm going to head to Kamlesh now. So thank you for your time this afternoon. The first question I've got for yourself is, what importance does the criteria hold, and how should entrants structure their entry?
Thanks, Emma, and good afternoon, everyone. So, I mean, the criteria is really important, of course. It's how we score the entries. So I guess my first bit of advice would be just to read it really carefully. Tailor your entry, your submission to the criteria. Note that different categories have different criteria. So particularly where you are looking to submit in multiple categories or perhaps two categories, you will need to you will need to tailor your submission to those categories. And the last thing I think is just to strike a balance between being prescriptive about following the criteria. So you could take the route of following the structure of the criteria and just responding to those criteria. But what we're also looking for is for the submission to be brought to life. So you need to try and strike a balance between bringing it to life versus meeting the criteria. And I guess the final thing final thing I'd say is just a plea, really, is make the judge's job easy. We read a lot of these. So it really helps if you can make it stand out, and we want to give you the marks, so help us to do that.
Oh, that's great, thank you, Kamlesh. And I guess obviously being a judge, it is a great privilege as being a judge. But so, what do you think the judging panel are really looking for?
So I'd probably flag three things in this area. So context, we touched on evidence, but I'll build on that, and then impact are the three things really that I'm looking for. So context, whilst judges have a broad range of experiences, we don't necessarily know your context or your program, your organization. So please do put it into context for us. Back to the point of bringing it to life. Don't assume that we know your business. In terms of evidence, it's not just the additional 4 pieces of evidence that Sam spoke about, but we're looking for evidence in the submission itself. So when you make a statement, we see a lot of entries that just restate the criteria. We're looking for evidence that criteria has actually been met. So through examples or the additional evidence that Sam talked about. So be clear about what you've achieved, how you've done it, why. And don't be tempted to put too many examples in. A couple of really strong examples are better than many, and that would help you manage your word count as well. Finally, in terms of impact, be clear on the impact that the project has. You can think about it in the commercial context or on individuals, organizational impact, societal impact. There's lots of different ways of looking at it, but we really appreciate the programs that have had an impact and a chance to have had an impact. So sometimes entries are put forward too soon. So there is a timing thing there. And finally, I guess just be clear. So we have to read a lot of these.
No, that's really helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. No, it's great, Kamlesh. And I think it's really nice that you brought up that storytelling and narrative piece. Actually, that is just as important. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm now going to move on to Catherine and Paul. So again, thank you very much for volunteering your time this afternoon. This is much appreciated. So Catherine, if I start with you, what prompted you to enter the APM Awards?
So for me, the first thing really was the criteria for the different categories. It was going to be my last year that I was eligible for as a young project professional. And I think I'd recommend this to anyone, that if you're thinking about nominating yourself or being nominated and you are in that last year or so of eligibility, then go for it, because what you don't want to do is regret it and think about, if only I had put myself forward. So combination of I felt like, I would like to have this opportunity and might not have that opportunity again. And also I had, my project had really reached a significant milestone, and I felt like I had something to say and something to share and something to sort of celebrate as well with us.
Okay. And yourself, Paul, sort of what prompted you to enter the APM Awards?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Really, it was a sense of enormous pride for us as a project team. We've been working on this game for 4 years. We felt as though it was a nice opportunity to reflect on what we'd achieved. It was quite an external-facing project, so that made it a bit easier in many ways. But it was the pride, and it was the sense of opportunity to really reflect as a team, and it was a platform as well for our business to be put forward into the project management sector industry as well. So it was a really nice platform to showcase the success, and thankfully it worked out. Just flash a trophy there, modestly. Yeah, it was great.
Thank you, Paul. That's lovely. So, Catherine, back to you. What sort of techniques and processes did you use to structure or write your entry when you entered?
Yeah, the first, I think, structural decision that I made, or style choice, was decision to write my individual entry in the third person. And I think this is something a lot of people can find quite difficult, is to celebrate your success. If you have to say, I did this, I was responsible, it can be quite difficult even to write that. So I made the decision to write it in the third person and say, Catherine did this, Catherine worked with the team, and we did this. And I think that sort of, it made the writing process a little bit easier, because it felt like it wasn't, just about a celebration of my own ego as well. So I think that would be the first thing. I think if you're applying for an individual category, think about how you would like to read that, and it might be easier for the judges to read it in the third person as well. When it came to actually writing up my entry, I also took some of my precious word count to actually introduce myself, my business, and my program within some of that word count. So as we just discussed, I think giving that context at the start, it then made it a lot easier to build on that as I was working through the scoring criteria to try and provide the evidence and explain what happened in my project to apply it to. So I think spending the time, and although it may feel like it's a using up of your word allocation, I think it is worthwhile to set the scene, and then it lets you build on it throughout.
Fantastic, thank you, Catherine. And for yourself, Paul?
Yeah, I think sort of Karpush mentioned some of it really. I think it's important. We were really focused on making sure the criteria that were requested of the application were on the screen, as it were, with the application as it developed, so we could see that we were ticking off the right areas. But the most important thing, and it sort of came quite naturally to us because it was a very external-facing scheme, as I've already mentioned, was the bringing to life element of it, being enthusiastic about the project. We've done a lot of external-facing presentations and public relations work along the way, so we were quite well practiced at that. But I think that's something that helped us and gave us a strong nomination, really. So I really urge participants to try and be passionate about it, particularly at the presentation stage as well. Really be passionate, get the points across, and don't be shy to blow your trumpet, because there's a lot of pride and these projects are hard. So celebrate the challenge that you overcome and get it down into the presentation. But be methodical as well. Include everything that you need to include with the application.
No, that was a really good point, Paul. I think taking that pride, and I think that really comes through in some of the entries that we see. That actually is the pride that comes through, and it is fantastic, and passion. So I'll stick with yourself, Paul. But if you'd just like to go and sort of carry on about what your experience of entering was like.
Yeah, well, again, similar to what I've said before, but I think the opportunity to reflect on what you've achieved. Ours was a 4-year scheme, very challenging, as are all projects really, and that's why we love doing it, I guess, is we overcome the problems. That's part of the you have to have that passion to do the job. But I think that's really the present element of making an application is the opportunity to sit back and reflect. That's something that I really, straight away we started working on it. We felt that pride coming through, and we were really looking forward to our presentation being reviewed. And and even if you're not successful, it's the exercise in itself is worthwhile to consolidate the project team's experience together, which is a very positive thing.
Thank you, Paul. And the same question to yourself, Catherine.
Yeah, I would echo that, the opportunity for self-reflection kind of at a personal level and where my kind of career has developed, and then also as a team what we were doing in our project and how we had worked together to achieve that success. That was really, really great to just be able to write that down for the first stage. I also really enjoyed, unexpectedly so actually, I think the second stage, which was the panel presentation and question and answer session, because it's not very often that you get or in my business anyway, that you get a chance to sit down and talk to people who aren't familiar with the business, aren't familiar with your work, and actually share something that you are proud of. And so I enjoyed. I was a bit nervous beforehand about what it would be like, but actually it was a really enjoyable session as well.
Thank you, Catherine. That's good to hear as well. Okay. So has there been any impact on your company, Paul, for you personally since winning?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, National Grid obviously is quite a large organisation. We've got lots and lots of projects around the UK, and it's becoming more and more the case. So personally, and for my immediate team, it's sort of cemented our position within the business as experts in the sort of area of cable installation, which is what the project was about, high voltage cable installation. But broader than that, I think as part of National Grid's future workbook around net zero, some of the stakeholder learning that we developed during the course of the scheme, which was a big part of our presentation, as I referred to already, the recognition for that success and that process within the business has been used in other parts of the company as well. So there's been internal benefits that have come from it too. So yeah, it's very worthwhile, 100%.
Brilliant, thank you, Paul. And I guess for yourself, Catherine, has there been any impact on your career for you, or you personally?
Yeah, I think having that recognition from APM has been great, and having that internal showcase opportunity and the support from within the business it's also given me the chance to try some new experiences as well. So I'm getting the opportunity to speak at some conferences and speaking opportunities as well, just from the award process, and also meeting people through the APM Awards night and the process as well. So having that work within the business and recognition, but then also something different and allowing me to experience new things as well.
Brilliant, that's great, thank you. And final sort of questions for yourselves then, really. Did you enjoy the ceremony, and would you recommend attending? So Paul, what about you?
Yeah, definitely. It was a really good night actually. Ellie Taylor was the compere, well known. Many of you on the call have probably seen her in Ted Lasso and those sorts of TV shows. So she did an amusing stand-up routine initially, and then she did a great job comparing the evening as well. So it's lots of fun. So I would absolutely, definitely recommend attending if you can make it. And you don't need, well, certainly last year anyway, there was no need to make speeches to thank on stage, which is a welcome relief, I think, for a lot of people who are standing up. Yeah, that was a nice touch as well. So no, great evening. The team really enjoyed it. We had 10 people from National Grid there, and we had 10 people from my principal contract. So we had a big team celebration as well, and there was after dinner events as well for everyone to enjoy. So 100% well worth attending the evening completely.
Oh, great, Paul. And for yourself, Catherine, did you enjoy the evening?
Yeah, it was a really well put on event. I'd say it was really organised and just, the standard of everything from the food to the entertainment to, just nice touches throughout the evening. So we didn't have quite as many people. There was only 3 of us, but I think we're planning on more of us coming this year because it was a good night.
Okay, it's lovely. Thank you. That's great. Well, thank you so much for that. And I'm just going to do what sort of one final question, really, to all of you, really, and I'll go as I see you across the screen. But why enter, and what will entrants hope to gain by entering? So I'm going to go to you first, Sam.
Thanks, Emma. And it's really good actually to hear what Paul and Catherine were saying. It's exactly what we're hoping that people will get from being part of this. And for me, I think it's a real chance to reflect as you pull together your entry. That of itself is actually a developmental and learning experience, because you have to distill down exactly what it is that you've achieved, and also the way that you've personally developed and how you've learned as a project professional. So it's a really useful thing for you as an individual.
That was lovely. Thanks, Sam. And Kalpesh, yourself?
Thanks, Emma. And just building on what Sam said just then, it's also an opportunity to give back to the profession and share your learning. I mean, these are fantastic projects and individuals and organisations, and it's brilliant to be able to share that and help develop the profession as a whole.
Lovely, thank you. Catherine?
I think, why not? Why wouldn't you enter? I think, it's so kind of easy in terms of, or the APM are trying to make it easy to enter as well. We've got criteria. There's people that would want to help, you within your own business as well. I'm sure if you want further advice or support to do that, I think, why wouldn't you? It's a great chance for, as you said, reflection and also to celebrate our success as well.
Thank you. And finally, Paul, yourself.
Yeah, I mean, everyone said it really, to be honest. It's the opportunity to reflect. Why wouldn't you do it? I think, we're all busy. It's easy when you finish a major scheme, especially when it's been running for 3 or 4 years, to move on to the next thing. And it's a lovely way to stop, reflect, celebrate your success. Even if you don't win an award, I think that process is quite cathartic as a project leader for a team. So I'd completely encourage it. If you do get the award, it's the icing on the cake for an experience of the last 2 or 3 years that you've already had together anyway. So it's why wouldn't you? Simple as that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I'm just going to hand over to see if there's any questions. So, first question here is there an opportunity for project professionals from SMEs? Because SMEs can often have limited opportunity in terms of delivering challenging projects. I think I will ask Kalpesh that one.
Absolutely. We'd encourage folk to apply from whatever kind of organisation they're in. I mean, if I understand the question correctly, it's about a project professional, so an individual award. That sounds like it would be in the individual category rather than the organisational. Yeah, there's no reason why someone from a smaller organisation or a smaller project shouldn't apply. Great project management comes in all shapes and sizes.
Lovely. Anything else you want to add to that, Sam?
I think, yes, just to reinforce what Kalpesh has said, and in fact, I think the winner last year of our Chartered Project Professional of the Year came from a relatively small organisation and won a really incredible accolade for the work that they'd done on again, a relatively small community in Jersey, in terms of really helping to drive the profession and to support the profession and to introduce sort of innovation and good practice, which is excellent. But in terms of looking at the categories, we have got categories for small to medium enterprises, for not-for-profits, and I know not all not-for-profits are tiny, but quite a lot of the smaller organisations are, or the public sector. Which I think is why think about the category, and also allow yourself enough time so that you can really think about your entry. But we are, and the judges I think will absolutely reinforce this, we're looking to hear from individuals, their stories. We're not looking for glossy brochures. We're not looking for a load of marketing material that might have been produced for other things. It's very, very much the opportunity for us to hear your voice. So you should not be discouraged because you come from a smaller organisation. We absolutely want to hear from you and to hear from project delivery professionals across the entire profession.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So next couple of questions around should the submission follow the criteria headings and should the word count reflect the weighting of each section, please? I think, Kalpesh, I think your answer was really strong on that yes, it helps if it sort of follows the criteria, but actually bring it to life. So make sure the storytelling and the narrative is in there. So I'm hoping that, I think you gave, unless there's anything you'd like to add to that.
No, I'd just re-emphasise that we see both ends of the spectrum. We see submissions that are very prescriptive and structured around the criteria. We also see very sort of strong storytelling. But the best ones, as sort of Catherine and Paul described, their entries struck a really good balance between bringing to life, setting the context, and hitting those points, scoring points. And it is a challenge in a limited word count, but as Catherine used the phrase, precious word count, setting up for success is a good thing. On the word count point, again, I wouldn't want to be prescriptive, and I don't think it's probably APM's place to be prescriptive about where you place your word count. It will depend on each submission. So the submitter has got to, people preparing the submission have got to take a view on where that word count is best spent.
The way the criteria are structured actually enables you to tell your narrative. So we begin with what are the drivers to the project, and then at the end it's around the learning and the outputs. So I think about the chronology of your story, but also think about making it easy for the judges to read that story. If they're having to sort of go back and read it 4 times to find out exactly what your blockers were or your risks, or to understand your resources, it's going to be difficult for them to really judge. So think about your audience, but follow the narrative, which follows the life cycle of a project, and that should help you.
Yeah, a really good point. Thank you, Sam. Next question is, if you've been a finalist in previous years, can you apply again? Yes, you may. It just needs to be, obviously, it can't be a cut and rinse and repeat of what you put in the previous year. So it does need to be for a new project or program or new element. That doesn't mean that if, say it was phase 1 of a project that closed out and that was the year you put it in, that's absolutely fine. And this is a very phase of the second one, then that would be okay. But really, there is absolutely no reason why. Having been a emerging project professional last year, Catherine, you can't now go for the project professional of the year this year, so there's absolutely no reason why not. The next one is, what level of APM membership do you need for the APM Awards entry? Unless it is specific, so as a chartered project professional entry, then obviously you need to be chartered project professional.
You don't need to be members of the APM.
Yeah, it's just the chartership one that's specific for that. The next one is around, can you submit an entry for a project or individual award which references a project that hasn't completed yet? So the answer is, if it has completed a substantial phase, then yes, you can submit it. But if it's an ongoing project without a really good phase completed, then we would probably suggest to wait until you've actually completed that project.
I could maybe give an example on mine, Emma. That so, like I said, my project that I'm responsible for is a multi-year project, but I had a significant milestone in the year before that we could, like you said, we had quite an event that we were working up to, which then we could show that success in there. So even though it was a multi-year project, we kind of had a significant milestone that we were working towards, and we could showcase that.
That's great. We've got a question around, should we include feedback and quotes in our submissions? What do you think about that, Kalpesh?
I think if it helps bring it to life, then yes, why not? You've got the word count.
Yeah, I mean, I could second that. We put in some stakeholder comments, I think, in ours, so which helped.
It comes under the category of evidence, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Lovely. There's a question here around, how do judges rate the impact of a social project? For example, how do judges rate a large national project that has impacted thousands in a relatively modest way versus a small local project that has a life-changing impact on hundreds of people? So the scale of it, I think it's fair to say, would not be taken into account. It's the description of how well you've met the criteria within that. So the size is not taken into account. It really is, have you actually met the criteria that has been asked for? Can you describe, for example, clearly the lessons learned, if there's any innovation in it, those kind of things. Those are, if you read the criteria, that is absolutely what it will be scored against. It will not be scored on the size of the project.
Just to add on that, Emma, I guess the point Sam made earlier around the winner last year was, underlines that point. It was in Jersey and it was a limited impact up against organisations that have made impact on a sort of a bigger scale, I suppose.
Yeah. In the categories for individuals, could you talk about more than one project in your submission? So, Catherine, did you just refer to I guess you were just one programme at the moment?
Yeah, so due to my work, it's just focused on one of them, and I think there's a time period that is in the criteria, so it's usually discussing the work that you've done in the past year. So for me, that was all just related to one piece of work, so that's what I focused on.
Yeah, there's nothing in the criteria to say you can't, but remembering the word count, you might find it difficult to provide supporting evidence across multiple projects.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, Sam. Thank you. It says, do you get marked down if you use, or if I don't know, it's meant to be don't use the terminology from the APM Book of Knowledge to describe your methodology? No, you won't get marked down. You don't have to verbatim apply the APM Book of Knowledge. It just needs to have that, show that it's met the criteria and it's bringing that story and narrative to life. I think it's fair to say. It isn't about, I think the thing is the other way, and Kalpesh, hopefully you'll back me up on this, but the judges aren't there trying to lose marks, they're trying there to give you marks. It really is that case in each of the sections.
Absolutely, and it's not a test of your knowledge of the APM book. So
just to reiterate, you can submit the same project in multiple projects or multiple categories. You just need to be tailoring to make sure that you've done that. So if you want to submit it in an individual and into one of the project or program categories, that's absolutely fine. And then we'd just round about any tips for making the best use of the word count. I guess particularly those that are constrained to about 1,000 words when the criteria. So I think you just need to be, and I think the question is when the criteria we have to meet and the reference is over 500 words. I think that's back to Kalpesh's point, is really pick out what reference really supports your evidence. And if it is really 500 words long, then you might need to consider how you could be tailoring that. But I'm going to go back to Catherine because obviously your category was a 1,000 words, so it'd be useful to get a bit of an overview of how you approach that.
Yeah, I think I can relate because I think I think it was about a 1,000 word limit, and if you read the criteria, it's about 800 words that telling you about the criteria. So you have, I think for me it was just making the decisions about what's important and telling the story. So like I said, there's no criteria that says introduce yourself, but I still used about 150 words, so 10% to provide that context. And then it's when I looked at the criteria, it was about sort of chunking it up and what match, what have I got to say, and do I, is there anything that actually there's something that's really important, it's worth giving an extra kind of 50, 100 words here, but also just making sure I'm covering all the bases, because if you're getting marked on 10% on something and you don't mention it at all, then you're just leaving those marks on the table, really, aren't you? I think also maybe it's worth saying there's also, when you submit, you also put a summary. I think it's about 150 words summary that goes along. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. I think we've not mentioned it, but it's actually really important to spend the time and craft that as well, because that is that's your elevator pitch. That is what you're trying to say in a nutshell, and don't think of that as an afterthought to when you've written everything. And yes, that's the hard work, but also, that's a powerful summary of yourself and your project in that kind of, a couple of 100 words, and just, make it punchy and make it work for you as well. Don't talk about anything new, but, make it punchy about what you've said in your actual submission.
Okay. I think we've got to the end of the questions. No, we've got another one in. Are there any examples of winning submissions? I we don't post the winners' submissions in, but we do. There are plenty of examples in various social media, in the project management web magazines, as they follow up with winners of previous years, which will give you a sense of the project that they've actually submitted, or the individual that has won. So definitely would recommend maybe reading some of the APM back catalogues to have a look at that. But no, we wouldn't. We don't put out winning submissions. Right, so got one more question here, is how do you know if you are ready to enter? Who would like to take that one?
I'm trying to. How does that? I'm not quite sure of the question. Do you, in terms of how do you judge that you feel like you're ready, or is that the kind of?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. I think there's a time factor involved with it, or you can't go on forever with it. Give yourself plenty of time. But I think when you read through it and it's concise and you feel that you've given yourself a good account of yourself and the projects, you're getting all those criteria answered in a succinct way. That's when you know you're ready, really. But there is a sense of nervousness pressing that send. I agree. You feel as though have I done enough, but back yourself, really.
I could add something to that as well.
Thank you.
If I build on that, I think I mentioned it earlier in the session, but have a look at the criteria. Make sure you can tell a good story against each area of the criteria, and it is sometimes tempting to go too early. So sometimes these projects need a bit of time to be able for you to demonstrate or evidence the impact that they have had. So do you think about the timing carefully? Yeah,
I would absolutely reiterate that, because you do occasionally each year get some projects where you think, oh, you probably should have waited till next year, just because you can see the methodology is great, the approach has been great, but in terms of demonstrating impact, that the project has actually delivered against its objectives, against its plan, the evidence has not been realisable yet. So you might be really, really keen to enter, because it is a great thing to do, but I think just stand back and make sure that the impact is there.
Okay, thank you.
We'd finished when we submitted ours. I think that's important, isn't it? It's the benefits of the scheme. If you don't know those, it's difficult to really articulate it as well as you might be able to later.
Another question is, can a project planner make an entry? Yes, is the honest answer. Absolutely anybody can make an entry, so there's no restrictions to that as well. And there's a couple of questions around getting feedback to entrants. So you should get feedback. All judges are encouraged, as they're marking, to make feedback comments as they're judging the award. That is collated and should be available for anybody that has entered. They can ask for that feedback, whether it's a stage 1 or is a stage 2. They absolutely give opportunity for finalists, or those that aren't finalists even, to request feedback. Yes. If you were a finalist last year, or you submitted an award last year and you want feedback, then we actively encourage you to do that. All remains for me to do is to, one, thank you everybody for attending this afternoon, and a special thanks to the panellists Sam, Kalpesh, Catherine and Paul. Really appreciate giving up your time this afternoon. And for everyone on the line, really hope to see your entrants coming in, and we really look forward to reading them and hopefully seeing you all on the ceremony on the 18th of November. So with that, good afternoon everyone, and thank you very much.